Some are called to God's service. Others are born to it. You can run from it. You can hide from it. Eventually, it's going to catch up to you. I'd been running from it for so long I'd forgotten what it was like to be alone in my head. They say you can't outrun your destiny. And all it took was the end of the world as we knew it to make me finally face that.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Cuban NBC Live Studios for another episode of Recovery Unplugged with Amy McCorkle. And we have Laurel Adler in here with us tonight. What's up, Amy?
Just a bunch of different stuff getting off the ground. Put together the crowdfunding for The Guardian, which is a television pilot. It's much more ambitious. There's action, there's practical effects, there's all sorts of things. So obviously Mark is very busy, and we, by the grace of God, got him for Letters to Daniel, but his schedule is such that he has hardly any free time at all. So I turned to Clint Gage, who is he's an experienced editor. You know, we had him on here. He's directed movies. He's a talented guy. So having him at DP, but it's different. He knows this isn't like Letters to Daniel, where even though it's a mental health advocacy show, there is a lot. He would be like Mark, bringing his equipment, and he would be bringing lights, cameras, and all that stuff. So, and he'd actually help. Part of the crew would be taken care of through his end too. But because of that, it costs more. The movie is basically twice as much as what Letters to Daniel costs. And so we've got like a fundraiser going for it right now, and I hope to go to Nova, which we're still waiting on hearing about, and they have a lot of like distributors and producers, and it's a lot like, it's like the sister festival on the East Coast to AOF, and Fernando Mico puts that together. We're supposed to have him on the show sometime this season. So I'm hopeful that The Guardian coalesces quicker than Letters to Daniel did, but a lot like Letters to Daniel, we want to make sure everything's in place. If I'm going to make another movie, I don't want to half do it. I want to make sure I put my best foot forward.
Sure. And we saw the trailer for The Guardian to open up the show. So make sure you guys all rewind that. And chat, send a like or let us know what you're watching in chat and on Facebook, and we'll bring that in. We're also multicasting today to Vim and DLive, a couple of blockchain sites. I did a week trial to test it out and make sure that it works. So we're on there tonight, hopefully. I haven't been able to check yet, but the Facebook stream's working, so I'm assuming the other two are working. That Guardian trailer is really cool. It leaves you like going, oh wow, it's pretty powerful.
Did the music to that. It wasn't the music something special, and then Maria, the same girl who did the voiceover for Amy in Letters to Daniel, did the voiceover for it, and it got into a lot of festivals, and people were saying, "How'd you get that footage?"
Zip, zip. You'll never tell, huh?
I'll never tell. But
Oh
it was the
boy.
perfect piece of footage.
I guarantee you'll tell if the film gets made
I will.
at the end. That's when you
Yeah,
tell.
that's when you tell
Yeah.
at the end.
Yep. So we're gonna show your. We have Laurel in here too. We're gonna get to her interview. Hi, Laurel. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm just fine.
Well, thanks for coming on. We usually do a little bit of a soft intro and then we get right into the interview. So I saw, Amy, you do a couple things for the Conquering Disabilities Film Festival, and like a couple submissions have been accepted,
Yes.
and everything's going good with that.
Well, I haven't. The submissions are coming in slowly. That is the thing about first year festivals. Everybody wants to make sure you're not a scam. They want to make sure you're the real deal and if you're going to have staying power. But the thing is, we need people to submit their films. And you know the deal. It's like if you are struggling with a mental health condition, a chronic physical condition, we want to see your work. If your talent, writer, director is struggling with those issues, we want to see your work. If it's about that, we want to see your work.
Well, don't give away all the content because we're going to show the promo video from a couple shows ago.
Okay.
But we need submissions.
How'd you get submissions, Laurel?
Oh, I'll tell you, this is the second year of our festival, and I do understand what Amy's saying because it was a slow start. A couple of things. I just kept bombarding Facebook, which I use as a primary marketing tool, and talking to a lot of other people. But when it came down to it towards the end, and I ended up extending the deadline by a couple of days, and when it all came down to it and the actual submissions were in, I asked several people how they got connected, and they said they just found us on Film Freeway. So honestly, I think in some cases my promotional work was helpful and it did bring in, but when it got down to it was literally filmmakers searching the site to find a festival that fit their project.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so second year won't be quite as bad because then you'll have a cadre of people that from the prior year. But it's hard to get off the ground. And so I will let Amy know, and I will tell her off air, I'll submit something to her festival.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's watch.
Yeah. Not all of my films are about disabilities, but I do have one that I would be happy to submit, and it has a little international flair to it as well.
Oh, well, I'd be happy to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that.
All right, well, let's watch a little snippet from one of our last episodes that talks about the Conquering Disabilities with Film Festival, and we'll be right back with Amy's interview with Laurel.
Okay.
Conquering Disabilities with Film International Film Festival is about it takes things like films, screenplays, poems, short stories, music, photography, one sheet, like, movie posters, movies shot on your iPhone, true stories that are narrative, not necessarily documentary. And of course we take documentaries, we take a lot of different stuff, and you have to either be struggling with a mental health condition or a physical challenge, a chronic physical illness, or the material has to address mental health issues. So, and for your film, the way you qualify is if it is not about mental illness, your director or your writer or your DP or your talent needs to be facing those conditions. And you put it in the cover letter. Please, people, put it in the cover letter so I can consider you for some specialty awards. It tells me that you're qualified and that, we want to see your work. We want to honor you, and we want to honor that, we know, especially we know firsthand what it's like to battle these things and to produce artwork. So the website for Conquering Disabilities with Film is Conquering Disabilities filmfest.com. And for Film Freeway, it's filmfreeway.com/Conquering Disabilities Film Fest. Tonight, our guest is award-winning documentary filmmaker and co-founder of NewsFest, Laura Adler. I met her at the 2017 AOF MegaFest. So why don't we start there? Your film, The Chain, was there at the same time as my documentary, All in the Family. We were both nominated for Best Director Documentary, and you very deservedly took home the prize that night. Why not tell us about The Chain and what led you to make it?
Oh, yes. Now, this movie actually starts in Sierra Leone, Africa, and it is about a young woman who was orphaned, and basically when she was only around 6 years old, and then was wandering the village in Africa, and was basically adopted by a white missionary family. And after they stayed there for a while, they moved their entire family plus her to Chicago. So the movie is pretty much, you take a child out of the middle of Africa and drop them into a white suburban Chicago neighborhood, and she'd never heard of racism. She had no idea these nasty words that people call the N-word. And, you know, she grew up not even understanding any of that and had to learn to adapt. So that's what the movie's about.
Oh, wow. Okay. What led you to make it?
Oh, I became acquainted with the young woman who actually is the subject of the film. And I asked her if she was willing to talk about her story. And that's as simple as it was. And she said yes, and there we go. I just find interesting people and interesting situations everywhere. If you just open up and listen to other people and meet them, and you find amazing stories everywhere in the world.
Okay, so
this one just happens to be right next door to me.
Okay, well, why documentary films, and what is it about that form of motion picture that draws you to it?
Well, I think it's partly because I have a sense of adventure. And the one thing about documentaries, and I have not done them my whole career. I started off doing a lot of very different things, including visual effects producer for Hallmark films, which are all, of course, yeah. So, but the reason I got involved in documentaries is there is nothing that's more interesting than the truth. And no matter what kind of script you write, the truth or real situations are always just way more amazing. And coupled with my sense of my love of adventure, which has gotten me into trouble in certain countries, which I can tell you about later. I can tell about it on air because I'm not in that country to be rounded up again. But I love the sense of going into the other countries, other situations, and telling amazing stories that come from everywhere in the world. Because I think that, I guess the overall message I'd like to get is that it doesn't matter where we live, who we are, what our circumstances are, we're really not all that different. And the things that people suffer through and basically triumph over, no matter where they are in the world, we can identify with.
Okay. We met through AOF MegaFest, as mentioned before. As you know, Del is a charismatic guy, and when he has a vision, there's really no stopping him. Last year marked the inaugural NewsFest. What is NewsFest?
Right.
What is NewsFest, and what led to the creation of this film festival?
Well, I think NewsFest was a natural outgrowth of my love of documentaries, because documentaries are just a more formal form of news that is just kind of packaged together and structured a little differently from just delivering the news. But the NewsFest, it's really NewsFest True Stories. It started off basically to say, if you have a story that is or a news item or a screenplay that is based on actual events, then this is the festival for you. So we accept documentaries, both short and feature length, that are based on either true stories or enough of based on a true story that we know that it is. We also do news features that have appeared on news television, and we do screenplays and scripts that are based on true stories as well. So the format can vary from an actual news clip to a documentary to a feature scripted film, but they're all based on reality.
Yeah, I was gonna say the feature scripted film is, I think it's new to this year. Is it? And why did you add it in particular?
Well, it's actually not new to this year. However, we did add it partly through last year when we first hosted News Fest back in last February, like a year ago. We were all newsy, and then based on some feedback and discussion with other people, then we added the feature, which was scripted narrative, but still based on reality.
Well, yeah,
and
that's
actually,
what I did.
yes, and actually that's a great format. And there was a huge response to it. It ended up being, if it wasn't our most popular submission category, it was close to it. And so, and we've even had a couple of instances of very interesting kind of experimental approaches where we had one last year that won, and it was a film out of India, and it was partially scripted and partially documentary. And so it doesn't sound like it would work, but if you watch it, it does. It takes the entire issue, and this was of children with cancer, presents a straight documentary news thing and intersperses it with a scripted little play within a play, so to speak, of a child and their family. And so it was, a lot of people discouraged this young woman from making that format because they said it would never work. It would never work because it's either a documentary or it's a scripted film. You can't mix the two. Well, she just ignored them, fortunately.
That's
and
the best
it was,
thing to do.
yeah, and it turned out to be amazing.
If
So,
you don't believe in yourself, no one else will.
Absolutely. So we really invite new ways of telling stories that can happen or happen to people. And so whether you combine media like this young lady did, which again, she got a lot of criticism when she decided to do it, but it turned out beautifully. So we welcome lots of new ideas. We also have original music that tells stories, and we had an amazing music video that was a tribute to Marilyn Monroe last year. So, but she was a real person and a real life, very tragic one, put to music.
Okay, so this marks year 2 of News Fest. How has it grown? How has it changed? And where do you see it going from here?
Okay. Well, we got off to an earlier start this year for sure. So that's been helpful. Our submissions are not bad. We're, like you, we're always looking for new ones. And we are keeping pretty much the same categories. So we'll find out. I'm getting a number of international submissions, probably a little more at this point than I did last year. So far we've gotten submissions from Gaza, from Bahrain, from Norway, and a whole Canada, and a whole bunch of other countries that you wouldn't normally think would even hear of a film festival or submit to it.
Okay.
So that's kind of exciting.
So how has it changed?
Well, basically, it hasn't changed that much, except at this point, we're getting more international submissions than we did last year.
And where do you see it going from here?
I don't know that I would change a whole lot about it, except make it bigger and make the prizes, bigger as we can afford them. One of the things that is a little unusual with our festival is that the winners in each category get to have their projects shown on a local television station. So one of the things that we did for this year It starred. It was a 13-week, 13-episode series of films, and they were all winners on the film fest, and so on the news fest. And that went from October through the end of December of 19, and that was year one's winners. And so year two winners will probably hit the airwaves about the same time in October, because it takes that long.
Yes, I need to talk. I don't know if I'm just glad Letters to Daniel got accepted into its fourth film festival. Whatever happens to, I definitely want to talk to you about it when I get out to Vegas.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can have a lot of fun discussions.
Yes. Okay. What film projects do you have in the works?
Right now, myself personally, and of course, I don't enter my own films in my own film festival. That'd be a little slanted.
No.
So I do enter them. I do enter them in other film festivals like yours and AOF and Hollywood Dreams and several others. The one I'm working on right now is kind of close to home. And I'm actually working on two. One is further along, and that has to do primarily with Hawaii and the history of the Hawaiian nation when it was sovereign. And a lot of people don't realize that Hawaii was a sovereign nation and was overthrown by business people, American businessmen, and had their land stolen.
How terrible.
And the World Court has ruled that it wasn't an illegal takeover. And so right now, the politics of this is getting very heated up. And so in terms of, it's all true. The Hawaiian kingdom that was recognized and was in the League of Nations and was recognized in the embassies and everything, was illegally overthrown and then made part of the United States. And so that's one I'm working on right now. And hopefully it'll be ready for the Mega Fest.
Yeah.
Well, it will be, because I will make sure it's ready for Mega Fest.
Okay, now we're going to pivot and talk mental health. You film a subject for a documentary. How do you think that impacts their mental health, and how does it impact yours?
On the subject of the documentary?
Yes. Like the person or persons that the documentary is about. How is their mental health impacted by how you come in and you shine a light on their story?
Yeah, I think that's you asked a very important question, because I'm very respectful of the people who allow me to be part of their lives for that period of time and to talk about their story. And so I am very careful that I don't include anything that's a problem for them. And when I filmed in China, for instance, one of the young men I was interviewing said something, because he got very, very casual at the end. And he said something about the Chinese government that I knew immediately I needed to take out if the young man was ever going to be found again. I wasn't about to put his life in danger. So I self-edited out. Now, a lot of people would say, you shouldn't do that. That's, it is what it is. But I'm not going to put someone in danger or their mental health in danger with fear they're going to be arrested. And so I thought, it's not that important. So I took it out of the Chinese language version of the movie. I left it in the English version, which does not show in China. But I was very careful that anything that I turned over to the Chinese did not have that in it. So that's an example. You have to be careful when you come into people's lives. You have to be very careful, and you have to be respectful, and you have to be very aware of consequences. Because a number of the places I've been, the governments are totalitarian. And so you need to make sure you don't show anything that's going to put them in danger.
Right. Well, I know when I shoot a documentary, it's always very personal. And and I always have to keep in mind and usually it's about mental health. There's only one documentary I've ever done that's not mental health, but I have to keep in mind checks and balances for myself. Do you find yourself like, because whenever I interviewed my cousin Rebecca for All in the Family, I asked her some personal questions, and I didn't realize till near the end of the festival, that it was affecting her so much. And when I went back and was editing, I could really see it. Um,
Yeah.
oh, and that concerned me. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to, like, make her feel bad for things she had said.
Right. Right. Yeah. You have to respect and be concerned about the feelings of the people that we're showing the world, because these are all private people for the most part. They're not public celebrities.
Right. Um, have you ever personally been touched by mental illness, either by experiencing it directly, or as a caregiver for someone with it?
There has been mental illness in the family. I have not personally experienced it. There has been in the family. I was not the caregiver, but I have seen, and most of that was coupled with substance abuse. And so it's very difficult to sometimes know how much is the mental illness and how much is the substance abuse. But that was a problem in my family, and very close. But it was all wrapped up in substance abuse.
Okay. In your illustrious career, how has the industry we work in changed for the better where it comes to mental illness, and how far do we still have to go?
Oh, well, I think it's changed for the better in the simple fact that it is a subject that is now talked about, where I don't think it was. And, there have been cases of, even for years and years, like Vivian Lee, who did back in the 30s, Gone with the Wind. She played Scarlett O'Hara, and she had severe mental illness, but it was never shown. It was never talked about. And I think over the years, at least now, it's a subject that people are more open about, not as much as physical illness. There's still a stigma for sure, but it certainly is better than it used to be. In other respects, Hollywood just does what it wants. And I use Hollywood with the small h, in other words, the industry. And, if it's a story they think that will sell, if they think it'll make money, they'll go for it, So in that respect, it has not changed. But I do think there's a little more openness and acceptance than there used to be.
What do you think has to happen to move the needle forward on acceptance and accommodating those with mental illness on a movie set?
Well, first of all, mental illness, like other disabilities, is protected under the American Disabilities Act. And so I think that what we need to do is make sure that people have that protection, and, hire people and work with people and be a good example in terms of, because I don't think, you change a structure or an organization, or just a system, which is what the industry is, but it's a disjointed system without a center that makes decisions. So you can only do it by, I think, little by little, with examples and doing it yourself, and making sure that people with disabilities, including mental illness disabilities, are protected by law.
Yeah, well, I was on an independent film set when I made Letters to Daniel, and it was challenging. I think I signed with a manager, and I tried to explain to her that my writing partner was still my primary emotional caregiver. And it's really hard for people. It's like I told people, it's impossible to overstate how important Missy was to that set. Yes, I was directing, but she was in the background, taking care of me and doing the administrative things that I couldn't have possibly done if I wanted to focus on directing the actors.
Right.
So being out in the being out in the world, not in Hollywood, I think we still have a long way to go because I experience everything under the sun. It's better. You're right. It's more open now. When I was first diagnosed, there was like hardly anybody talking about it. I mean, I can count on two fingers who I can think of: Patty Duke and Maurice Bernard, who were talking specifically about bipolar disorder. And
Mm-hmm.
and people are more open. They talk more now, but I still think we have a long way to go.
Well, one of the ways that can help is to have characters in shows,
Yeah.
like your own, and probably the most one of the most well known Showtime shows that deals with bipolar disorder in a relatively matter of fact way, but it's still all about bad guys and good guys. It's Homeland,
Yeah.
where
What?
the main character has bipolar disorder, but she's still a spy and a good one.
Yeah. What do you think film festivals, and film markets can do to advance the cause of reducing stigma?
By showing those films, by honoring them, awarding them, and also finding ways to distribute them. Those are really, really important things because we can make good movies, but they still need to be shown and distributed and having the public see them. And that's a whole other aspect of the industry, of course.
Now, finally, let's have a little fun. If your life was a movie, what would the title be?
Oh, gosh. If my life was a movie, it would be something like What Happens Next? Because on the surface, I look like a very organized person, and I am, but I organize so I can be disorganized, if that makes sense. And so I have just enough organization to, earn a living and not be overwhelmed. At the same time, I'm open to anything that's not scheduled, that's not anticipated. And I think that's why, that's part of that sense of adventure. So what happened, what's going to happen next? I don't know, but something will. And that's kind of how I live,
Oh.
So I can't tell you really what I'm going to be doing, a year from now or what my plans are, because those kind of emerge out of the universe, so to speak, in many ways.
Yeah. If you could cast anyone in the cinematic universe to play you in this movie, who would it be?
Oh, gosh. Uma Thurman.
Ooh, nice choice.
Yeah.
In your life, what is your proudest professional accomplishment and your proudest personal accomplishment?
Oh, probably at this point, my proudest professional accomplishment at this point was getting you through year one of Newsfest Film Festival, because there were times that I thought, I am crazy for having done this, but it all turned out well. And so that I am proud of. And it may not hold that place as the thing I'm most proud of 10 years from now, but right now it's big because I learned a lot, I made mistakes, and I'm, for this year's film festival, I'm learning from those. And so I can be most proud right now of that. And what else did you ask me? I forget the other part. I'm sorry.
Your proudest personal accomplishment.
My personal accomplishment. That's kind of all mixed up. My children, I guess.
Yeah, that seems to be the big answer when I say what's your proudest accomplishment. If I don't differentiate, they always say their kids.
Oh, of course.
I understand why.
Oh, sure. Because, when you're really young and you have a kid, my first feeling was, how do I make sure he doesn't become a juvenile delinquent? I don't know what I'm doing. He's going to be a criminal. And of course he's not going to be a criminal. But, you're when you've never had kids and they're little and you're young, you just like, oh my God, how can I don't know what I'm doing. This doesn't come with instructions. And so basically what I found is if, you're authentic with kids and you love them and you guide them properly, they're not, for the most part, they're going to grow up just fine because you or in spite of you, but they'll, most of them will do just fine.
What is your hope for News Fest in the future?
Oh gosh, I would love to see it just to get bigger, to be able to involve more people. I would like to I did have student submissions last year. I'd love more young people submissions because I think that's the way in which we can help students and teens and other young people develop in this industry, is by showcasing them as early as you can in their career. So I would like to be able to, I'm hoping that we will get more student submissions this year and in the future.
And last question, what advice do you have for filmmakers out there trying to make a name for themselves and who also struggle with mental illness?
What I would say is take the advice that seems right for you. And if someone's telling you something that doesn't feel right, ignore it and keep going.
Okay. John, that's my last question. You got any wrap up you want to do?
Yeah. I am working on it, literally working on it today. I took time for this interview and I'm going to go back to working on it. So should be done in July or sooner. Oh, terrific. Yeah. Oh, that'd be wonderful. Appreciate that. Thanks. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, great.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So are you finished with me, or you? I might
Well,
come
I
back
wanted
on.
to talk to you for a minute after. Okay. So, Patrick Hampton.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? My all my my devices all failed me today. Oh. Yeah.
No, just if you've got submissions and you meet the qualifications, send them in. Send them in to the Conquering Disabilities with Film International Film Festival. And if you've got submissions that qualify, send them in to Newsfest.
Absolutely. We help each other out. Good night.
Some are called to God's service. Others are born to it. You can run from it. You can hide from it. Eventually, it's going to catch up to you. I'd been running from it for so long, I'd forgotten what it was like to be alone in my head. They say you can't outrun your destiny. And all it took was the end of the world as we knew it to make me finally face that.